So again, thank you to everybody who just joined in. We really appreciate you joining us. Today, our webinar is going to explore how you can leverage saving and investing to reach your short-term and long-term financial goals. This is a really powerful financial strategy. So we want to figure out the ins and outs and how we can purpose it for ourselves. My name is Sarah Metzger, and I'm a specialist with the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center here at Penn State. We're located at University Park, hence the good central PA weather. If you're joining in from around Pennsylvania or around the country or maybe even the world, I hope the weather is good where you're at today. I also have Jacky on this webinar with us. Really excited about that. Jacky, go ahead and introduce yourself to the group.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. I'm Jacky. I am a senior finance major student at SMIL. I've been with the center almost 2 years now, and now is working 2 of my last few weeks at the center, and I'm happy to be here to do the saving and investing presentation with Sarah today.
Perfect. So two brains on the call to answer questions. I'm going to give a special shout out. We've got in attendance here one of the architects of this presentation, Aiden. Aiden is also a student ambassador at the center. He's done a ton of great work for us. So this is the second time we've done this new refreshed version of saving and investing, and it's a wonderful slide deck. So I have to shout him out and say thank you, and thanks to Lindsay, one of our other ambassadors who put this all together. And we hope that that you all as attendees find it beneficial. So we're going to dive in. This is being recorded. It's going to be on our YouTube page later. So if you need to come back to it, you can. You've got the chat feature in front of you, so you can send chat questions or comments through community learning space. Like, you're welcome to dialogue in there as much as you'd like. We also have a Q&A box where you can submit questions anonymously or through your name. It's totally up to you. You can upvote or comment on those questions as well. So if there's a question somebody else asked and you're like, oh yeah, I want that answer too, let us know. If we don't get to the question in the moment, we will get to it at the end, okay? So let's get started. All right. So Jacky and I, we have the privilege of working at the Financial and Life Skills Center. If our office is new to you, I want to let you know how we can help. We're talking saving and investing today, but we cover a whole host of personal finance topics here. And our goal is to educate and counsel the Penn State community so that they are able to really improve their financial health. We do this through one-on-one appointments that are offered via Starfish, so students can book with us anytime. We've got group presentations as well as these webinars. So if you're part of a student org or an office on campus that wants a presentation, just hit us up. Happy to schedule that and deliver it in person or via Zoom. So all of our folks at the Commonwealth can take advantage of this as well. We've got self-study modules on Canvas that are free to the public. So maybe you're not affiliated directly with Penn State, but you want to tap into these resources. Check out our website because those Canvas modules are available for everyone. And then we also have a mentoring program that will connect students with alumni to help counsel them on, paying for college matters, personal matters, academic and professional matters. It's really what they make it. It's a really exciting program. And then we also have workshops that we just started enrolling now that will kick off at the beginning of next month. So if you are Penn State student, staff, or faculty, and you would like to enroll in one of our small group hands-on workshops, they are happening virtually in the evenings for 5 days early next month, non-consecutive days, but they're the first, within the first 2 weeks of April. We can send you that link at the end of this session, and you can get enrolled for that first series of workshops or get on our wait list for the future offerings that we have coming up. It's really exciting. Our ambassadors have, they can tell you firsthand, they've been through these workshops. You get a micro credential badge at the end. You're really able to say that you are the expert in this, and you're, ready to help teach others, right? Okay, so services out of the way, we're going to turn the floor over to you all as attendees because we want this to be a more engaging webinar, and we want you in this mindset to think about saving and investing. So we'll give you the chance here in the chat to finish 1, 2, or all of these sentences, how you feel about money, something really fun you've been saving for, or your thoughts about investing. So let's take 60 seconds and gather from the group kind of how we're entering this conversation about saving and investing our money. Jacky, you too, you can drop your thoughts in the chat there as well. Mm, okay. So we have some thoughts rolling in, feeling that investing is a little overwhelming. Yeah. I I still personally feel that. Like as somebody who is a certified financial educator who's kind of in this world, I still feel overwhelmed with investing at times too. Um, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to totally shake that feeling. I think I can quell it a little bit more, but it's not an unfamiliar feeling for me personally, nor do I think it is for others. Investing is scary. Another investing is overwhelming. Okay. So some shared similar feelings here. We a little bit of apprehension approaching investing. I'm really glad you're here because we're going to hope to kind of um, ease that for you, give you some information that will help you feel more confident as you endeavor to invest. And then on the flip side of things, some folks talked about fun things that they're saving for retirement, necessary and fun. So you can do fun things in retirement. And then also a car, which for especially, well, I mean, anybody can save for a car, but I know that like for our college students, that's often one of these like big ticket items after graduation that they're saving for. So yeah, very good. Very, very good. Jacky, anything that you wanted to add here? One, two, or three?
I personally, I choose three and kind of different from everyone in the chat. I know it's confusing for lots of people, but as this is my major, I actually feel excited for investing. And that's why I go for it and almost finish my 4 year studying that. And that's personally like for me, but no worry if you're feeling confusing, you're feeling like overwhelming about investing. That's why we're here today to guide you through that.
Yeah, it is. And as someone just said in the chat, like it's a learning process and it really is. And we don't expect that everybody develop a hobby out of passionate, or I'm sorry, a hobby out of investing, like that they're so passionate about it that, they're every day, checking the market, this and that. You might check the market out of necessity because that's just part of like where your comfort lies. But you don't have to go and get a finance degree like Jacky did or is doing. You don't have to let this be a hobby for you. But there are some powerful reasons why folks should be investing. And so at minimum, like we want to help build your comfort around it and give you the tools and information you need to make really strong decisions that will improve your financial health in the world of investing and saving too. We are going to talk about saving. Our conversation is going to be geared more towards investing, but we're definitely going to start with saving because saving is really in this ladder to growing our financial health, becoming more financially fit, like saving is what we see early on in our financial journey. Like some of us have been saving since we were kids. Our parents created savings accounts for us, or you've got a jar on the counter in your kitchen where you're dropping off your spare change. Like it's a habit that we tend to get into when we're younger, or we learn about it as like a financial practice pretty early in life. And it's related to budgeting. It's related to rainy days and making sure we're prepared for the unexpected. So we'll talk about savings. But as Jacky and I start to pivot to investing, this is where we would be at a higher point on our financial ladders. All of us would be where we've got a budget set, we've got our day-to-day finances managed, we've got emergency funds for rainy days. If we have student loans or credit cards or a car loan, like we're managing our financial obligations, our debts that we have before us. And then we're starting to think ahead to retirement. We're thinking ahead to, what more can I do with some of this money that I have in my budget that maybe isn't tied to my monthly bills or my emergency fund or my debt payments. What can I do with it? And that's where we enter investing at the higher rungs of the ladder. But take this in stride. We're going to talk all about saving and investing today, but this is not to say that tomorrow you should go out and create an investment account for yourself if you're not ready. In due time, we all kind of climb this ladder at our own pace. And so if you've kind of gotten to a point where you're like, well, what's next? Or where should I have maybe started if I don't feel super secure in the financial space I'm in? You can look down at the lower rungs, look up to the higher rungs, and make your adjustments from there. That's how we use this ladder. And there you go, right up it, right? Okay. So we're going to start with a conversation about compound interest, because that's really the magic when it comes to saving and investing. This is what gets us really excited about the prospect of depositing money or investing our money. And so here's how it works for those of us who are new to this concept. The cash that you save, either in a savings account or an investment account, it's going to earn interest. And that initial cash deposit that you put in, like you're going to see in this graph here, that's what we call the principal. You're earning interest on that money that you originally saved, plus on the interest that you've accumulated. So you get like this reverse snowball. Instead of rolling downhill, it's rolling uphill. And as you put in money, as you deposit money into these accounts, your balance is going to grow exponentially, which is kind of what you see in the chart here. You've got a blue line and a red line. The blue line are your deposits into the account. And that red line is showing your total balance after interest has been accumulating and compounding over time. So you end up with a bigger and bigger pool of money. So in this example, let's assume you are investing $250 a month over the course of 40 years. So we're thinking long-term, probably retirement. You can see your contributions over that 40-year time, month to month. And then you also see the return you're getting. So you see the compounding nature on top of that principal balance and the interest. And at the end of the day, at the end of these 40 years, assuming a 10% interest rate, which is that stock market average over time, your initial contributions, right? Your initial contributions of, something, I think we're just a little over, we're a little over 100,000. We're definitely I think by our charts here, we're at a little below 170,000, right? We've got a return of $1.3 million, which is the magic. This is what's so exciting about compound interest and why we don't just put our money under the bed, because money under the bed or in a jar isn't going to do this for us, but money deposited in an account will. So Jacky, I wanted to ask you, I know you love Excel because you are a finance major. You're happy to use Excel to calculate compound interest for yourself, make these charts on your own. But for those of us who maybe don't love Excel, where can one go to find a compound interest calculator, or do you have one to recommend?
So there are actually two websites I recommend to use. One is investor.gov, another is NerdWallet. These two websites are pre-built function, interactive form. You just put in number, they'll help you calculate that for you. I know this definitely be something overwhelming for lots of people not in the field as I am. And I'll put in the link in the chat later, but these two will be really useful resource for you to use.
Perfect. I love a good calculator. Okay. So definitely, start to forecast what you could do with this money, this money you have in your budget that's set aside for saving or investing, and how that could be a powerful return for you in the future. This is what's so exciting about it. So let's start with a conversation about saving and why we don't just keep our money at home in a cabinet, but we actually deposit it into a savings account, right? We've got three main reasons that we would say, are kind of universal to a lot of folks, right? That like rainy days, I've mentioned it. We want to make sure that we're ready for broken phones and, fender benders, things like that, flat tires. But also quarterly and annual expenses. So when you think about building out your budget, every year or two, you've got your car registration that sneaks up and you have to pay that bill. You have insurance payments that maybe don't come each month. You've got holiday gift shopping that comes up once or twice per year. And so you save some money for the anticipated future short-term expenses, as well as short-term goals, also expenses, but like hopefully the good kind, right? Like putting a down payment on a car, or Jacky loves to travel. He's probably always saving for these short-term travel trips that he's taking, right? This is why we save. In fact, I'd be curious to know from you all, why do you save? If you want to drop a message in the chat of like a goal, something you're saving for currently, or if there's something that we haven't mentioned, like reasons why you save, we'd love to hear it. Jacky, do you have a short-term goal that you're currently saving for?
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, I think you already guessed that. As graduation is coming, I'm saving for my travel, but something different this time is my parents will come visit me, and I'll take them to travel across like major cities in East Coast, and that costs a lot. So that's something I'm working on to it.
Good, good. That's exciting. Well, I hope that all comes to be. Graduation is coming up soon, so very short-term goal. And I love what you all are sending through the chats. So, underscoring what the reasons why, or what we suggest people save for matches what you're saying and more. A house. Yeah. I'm saving for a house too. A little bit more of a long-term goal for some folks, but shorter term for me, and maybe for you too. Good. Yeah, so we're saving this money, right? And the money that we save is going into a savings account or some other savings vehicle that's offered through our bank. Could be a high yield savings account, a money market account, but the money is generally more liquid, meaning we can pull it out more readily when we need it. Now, in terms of, saving for these goals, building up your emergency funds, quick pieces of information, like the recommendation is, if you're building up that rainy day fund, strive to save at least 3% worth, or I'm sorry, 3 months worth of your living expenses. So, I think about for myself, worst case scenario, if I lost my job, I've got a rent payment, I've got a car payment, I've got these bills that I'm obligated to pay. If I can't find a job for a month or two, like I would feel and be way better prepared to manage that financial crisis that I would be in, because I'd have that 3 months to manage my necessities, pay the bills, and then work to get back on my feet and find a new job, right? So you name the emergency, whatever it could be, make sure you're saved and prepared for it. 3 months is that recommended rule of thumb. And then in terms of like how much of my income should I be diverting to savings for emergencies, short-term goals, irregular expenses, you name it? Like 10% is also that kind of industry rule of thumb, that if you can start to funnel away, pay yourself first 10% of whatever money you get from a job, whatever money you're getting from scholarships, grants, if you're getting a little bit of free money for school, maybe you found 20 bucks on the side of the road, like you're putting some of that towards your savings bucket, so that when needed, you can tap into all of these saving sources for the various expenses that are going to come your way. Most accounts are going to accrue interest, which is right why we save money in an account and not under the bed. Your savings account is probably not going to earn a whole lot of interest, but some amount. If you're looking for a little bit more, you'd pursue a high yield savings account, which is going to give you more than just the average savings account. Same with a money market account. But with a higher interest rate, sometimes there come a little bit more restrictions with those accounts. That may be the trade-off, but that's worth you doing a little bit of sleuthing on and figuring out like, hey, maybe it is worthwhile for me to open up a different savings account or a second savings account where I could generate a little bit more interest for myself. That's the benefit, right? So you're saving, you're putting a little bit of money away, you've got short-term expenses on the mind, but at some point you're going to start thinking ahead to the future, if not already. One of you indicated you're thinking about buying a house, right? Yeah, so that's probably like a big future expense that you want to access, and you're continuing to strengthen your finances. You're working yourself up through this ladder and you're thinking, okay, marriage, kids, retirement, vacations, home buying, boat buying. I mean, I don't know. Jacky maybe is going to travel the world, and that's going to be costly. I don't know. What's a big thing, Jacky, that you are planning for in the future, a big expense?
So as I normally travel a lot, actually what I'm thinking of in a long term is to settle down. So, but I want to settle down in like multiple places. So I want my beach house, my own house, and some like getaway house in a forest, something. That's something I'm thinking of in the long term.
Okay. That's great. You gotta speak it into existence, workshop these goals to make them smart, right? And then formulate your savings plan. Now, these expenses, they cost a lot, right? I mean, if you have a child, you know, children are expensive. I was a child once, and my parents have told me how expensive I was. Um, Home buying, expensive. So we get into this different space. We pivot now from saving to investing, where we're going to be able to generate the money that we need for that. And it's really important that this pivot happens to investing because dun dun dun, inflation strikes. It continues to strike. And I'll actually let Jacky kind of, he's always probably thinking about inflation with this finance background of his, but like, we want to invest for the big expensive future costs we have, and inflation is really playing a major role here. What's going on, Jacky?
So after COVID, inflation has been really high. The highest point was around 9%. And now currently last month is 6%. What we mean by that is that every year the price of all the product or everything you're purchasing will go up by 6%. And we can see that in our life recently, egg price have been shooting up. Now gas price has also been at a high point, and these are just an example that everything are getting more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, and you want like the power of your dollar to keep up with that, right? So this idea of like, well, I have a savings account, I'm depositing money into that account, it's earning a little bit of interest. That interest rate probably is not keeping up with inflation. So after a period of time, like the power of that dollar in your savings account is going to weaken, and it's not going to have and hold as much value as that future dollar will. And so we need to be able to put our money into an investment account that's going to beat inflation so that we retain that power, and that spending power down the road. Because like we said, like these expenses, they're coming, and we want to be able to meet them head on. So this is why we invest. One of the reasons why we invest. And our conversation on investing today is going to begin with retirement, because that is something we all want to be able to do. I mean, maybe you want to work for forever, but you probably want to get to a point where you're older that you can, I don't know, work part-time or work on a volunteer basis where you're not having to work for an earned income at that point, right? So the goal is to have enough money to pay for expenses the rest of your life. You stop working and you are still living a comfortable lifestyle. In the kind of chain of financial health and climbing our financial ladder, like if you're going to start investing, start here, because this is something that you want to take advantage of, that compounding nature of investing. You want to give your account balances enough time to grow and be ready for you. And there's a huge reason why. In fact, I'm going to bring up a poll question here. Like in talking about retirement, do we know as a group, like how much it's going to cost a person to retire? So like, let's assume somebody's 65 and they are going to retire and live another 20 years. Any idea how much that's going to cost? Okay. I'm going to share these results out in like 15 seconds. So get your answers in. We've got most everybody responding. Okay. Some of us are telling us also in the chat what they think. Got 300,000 coming through the chat. So a metric that didn't fit within our four choices. Okay. All right. I'm going to end this. Share it back out. Jacky, can you see those answers? Yeah. So we're kind of all over the board here. Some of us thinking it's going to cost $250,000 for a person to live out their retirement days, continue to pay for their expenses up until till death, I hate to be morbid there, right? But some of us also think it could cost upwards of $5 million. Jacky, what do we know about this?
So this is actually a study on the in 2019 and it's published on the USA News. So they're assuming that in average that all Americans spend around $50,000 a year, and in order for that to do 20 years, you need about $1 million.
Yeah.
However, there's also another way of calculating it because you might be spending more than $50,000 a year based on what's your salary level, what's your lifestyle. So another way of calculating it is based on your annual income. And from Fidelity, a recognized investment advisor, they suggest that by you at different age, there are different multiplier for you to aim for to save for money. I'll send that link in the chat later if you are interested to get more detail about it. Also with the news. So at age 67, they're suggesting that you have 10 times of your annual income.
At the time of retirement. So whatever your income was at retirement, 10 times that amount. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Which, I mean, yeah, we're talking a lot of money here, several hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not over $1 million or more. Maybe not upwards of 5 million, but that's going to depend on a couple of factors like Jacky talked about, right? So we've got a major expense here in retirement, hence why we really prioritize this when we get to the world of investing, because this is an expense we don't want to fall short on. We don't want to have to go back to work after we retire, right? So how does one start investing for retirement? Where do you go? If you are some of the staff and faculty who have tuned in today, or you're already in the workforce, chances are you have an employer-sponsored plan, maybe a 401k or a pension or a 403b. I'm a product of the public school system. I'm a public, well, both. I also worked for many years in the public school system. So I have a pension. I have friends that work in private industry. They have 401ks. Generally, you're going to be offered a retirement plan through your employer that you can begin contributing to and build up that investing, that retirement nest egg for yourself. What's really cool with some of these programs offered through our employers is that they sometimes come with match opportunities. And so you could have an employer who is not only making contributions on their end, but then additionally matching your contributions to some extent. So it's like getting free money deposited into those accounts as well from your employers. So, whenever possible, take advantage of those, explore what your company has to offer, because there may be a variety of plans. Now, in addition to that, or before that, because some of y'all are students, and so I recognize you're not in the workforce full time yet, or even if you are, we've got these accounts called IRAs, individual retirement accounts, that you can open for yourself and begin making contributions and investing for retirement through this account. And really, the only requirement is you have some source of earned income. You don't need to be employed full time. You just have, like I said, some source of income. And between these, two accounts, which I'll a Roth and a traditional, which I'll explain more in just a second, both offer tax benefits. So they're really nice investment accounts for anybody, kind of any age, because they offer tax benefits that could benefit you both, when you're in college, and then, even when you're older in life, getting closer to retirement. Given that there's two types, one might be better for you than the other, given your age and stage, but that's going to be up to you to decide. And I'll give you some considerations in just a moment. But keep in mind, like, these are retirement investment accounts. They are intended for retirement, meaning you generally cannot tap into these funds until you retire. With IRAs, for example, you need to be 59 and a half years old at least to begin taking out those that money, contributions aside, penalty free. So, just as you're kind of like, okay, like Sarah's talking about investing for retirement as like a first point of entry, start here. good? Like, what do I need to know? That's some important information. Like, this is money that's meant to play the long game and be ready for you 20, 30, 40 years or more down the road, right? Now, how do they work? Let's talk about that. So we've got, I mentioned tax benefits for both. And I want to take a deeper dive on these IRAs because they're really accessible to everybody. We might not all be at the point to have a 401k, or maybe we might not ever be offered a 401k, right? I'm not private industry. So let's talk what we all have access to, which are IRAs. So the difference in the tax benefits are as follows. With a Roth IRA, you're making after-tax contributions, meaning that when you go to withdraw this money in retirement, you won't be taxed at that time because you've already paid tax when you made your contributions in the first place. So you watch this money after tax income be added, that account balance is hopefully growing over time, and that at retirement you withdraw no taxes at that time. You pay no income tax at that time. On the flip side, with your traditional IRA, you're making pre-tax contributions so that when you go to retire this money when you go to retrieve this money in retirement, you are paying taxes at that time. So you might be wondering, well, like, what's the benefit? Why does this matter? So with a Roth IRA, if you're in a lower tax bracket now than you would anticipate being like later on at retirement, the benefit is you're paying less in tax when you're making these contributions before retirement and withdrawal, right? With the traditional IRA, because you're making pre-tax contributions, it's lowering your taxable income, meaning your tax bill may be lower at the end of the year. So there's benefits on both sides. Which is the right account for you is going to vary. Think about income expectations, how much time you have left until retirement, and some of the rules that follow these accounts before you make a decision on which to open. But keep in mind, you could also open both. It's possible to have a Roth and a traditional IRA. But because they have these tax benefits, there are limits to how much you can contribute. And for this 2023 year, that limit is $6,500 between both accounts if you have more than one. So, the benefit for tax is great, but of course, because there is that benefit, there's a restriction. The IRS limits how much you can contribute, and that limit is $6,500. Okay. So that said, we know that investing for retirement is really important because, like Jacky pointed out, it's going to be really expensive. It's a huge cost for us down the road. We can invest through an employer plan. We can invest through an IRA. Now, I want to give you strategy. I want you thinking about strategy when it comes to investing for retirement. So given some of these profiles, these investor profiles on the screen here, I want you to take a good educated guess on who you think is going to net the highest return at the end of the day. Like, who's got a strategy that you think in terms of investing for retirement is going to give them the biggest bang for their buck? Talia, Jess, or Nate? And who's going to end up with more at the end of the day? Or at the end of working, 30 or 40 years down the road? Give you another 5 seconds on this. Got most responses in. Okay. So I'm going to end the poll. Aha. You all are very, very insightful. Okay. So that, or you're really, good at recognizing these color coordinations. I think we should probably do away with our colored our colored chart here to make it a little bit more challenging, right? But we see in this simulation that Nate is going to net the highest return, right? He's investing for retirement through his 401k, his IRA accounts, and with a total investment of 200,000, he's netting that over $1 million return at the end of the day. And don't get me wrong, everybody here, Talia, Jess, and Nate, they're all doing good things for themselves. They're investing for retirement, right? They have these accounts set up. But they may be falling short in terms of what, the sufficient funds they need to afford their lifestyle and retirement, given some of this information that Jacky shared. The key here is to invest early and often, as we see Nate doing. So investing, is going to generally benefit you, no matter when you start, right? I mean, it's so your way to beat inflation. It's your way to generate wealth and money for retirement. But if you're going to strategize and try to build your best strategy, investing early and often is really going to be key. It's the income that you have to put towards your investment accounts, how long you leave that money to sit and grow in your investment accounts, right? And how frequently you're making deposits to those accounts. Those are really the variables that are going to influence the potential return here. And so for those of you who are in our audience today and you are younger, you are a college student, you are not yet even Nate's age, he started at 25 in this simulation, like this is really an important thing to be thinking about. Like, how do I get started with investing? Because I see that time is such a big variable here and I want to be able to take advantage of it, right? I'm going to plug in this space, like great time to have a one-on-one appointment as a student here at Penn State, like meet with a pro staff like myself or an ambassador like Jacky to unpack this further so that upon graduation, you have a plan and a strategy in place so you can take advantage like Nate did in this simulation, right? Aha. Oh yeah. And there's a good comment in the chat here. Interesting to see how Nate only invested 50,000 extra over his lifetime, but has an extra $500,000 in retirement. Yep. And that's just really underscoring the variables that are at play here. And why, the sooner we get started with a solid plan and a strategy, the better, right? Excellent. So then we pivot. We're still in investing, but we're kind of continuing to climb up our ladder, going beyond the space of retirement investing, because of course there's other places that we can invest and there may be other reasons why we're investing. Jacky has an interest in this. It's a hobby. It's fun for him. And so maybe it's fun for you too. And you have some leftover money in your budget that you want to play around with. Or let's say you just have leftover money in your budget that's not tied to the other rungs of the ladder, but you know that if you leave it in savings too long, it's not going to keep up with inflation and essentially lose value. So you know that investing is a good option for you, but like what else is there? What are your other options besides investing for retirement? And how do we do it? Which is probably a question you're asking yourself. So what Jacky and I have here is a pretty consolidated step-by-step process that will get you started with investing. And generally, it looks really easy because we've got an arrow with like 5 steps, but it can be really easy. I know a lot of us said at the beginning, like investing's overwhelming, it's complicated, it's confusing. Let's like really tune into this space and hopefully that's going to help break down some of that overwhelming feeling that you have or clarify what was maybe confusing before for you. So this process, short and sweet, begins with figuring out how much you want to invest, opening your investment account, choosing your investment mix, and then changing your investments over time to match your strategy, to match your level of risk tolerance, to match the change in the markets that we see, because the market is always ever changing and it will continue to change. And then hopefully watch your money grow. It's not necessarily guaranteed, of course, right? Because this is investing and investing can be risky, but that's the hope, that we watch our money grow. So let's break down these steps a little bit further here. Oh, and actually I wanted to ask Jacky in this space because you are an avid investor. Is there a step here that's like most important to you personally, that if you were to say like, hey, make sure you really pay close attention to this, folks in the audience, because reasons X, Y, Z, I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, definitely. I believe that changing investments over time is the part that's most important. It's also the part that require most research, because as the world is changing every day. And then, for example, we see like BlackBerry, the company can be doing pretty good at one point and you just disappear another point. This is something that you need to keep track with, and when you see on the news every day, everything is changing. So I think this is the most important part.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that insight. Its answers will vary, but I appreciate your insight there, Jacky. I would argue they're all important. So let's dive in. So where can we get started, right? You got to get that account open, assuming that you already have a budget, you know how much money you have available to invest, you're putting some towards retirement, and you've got a little bit left over that, it's not tied to your rent payment, it's not tied to your phone bill. If you were to invest it and lose it, you're not going to destabilize yourself financially. So with that number in mind, you figure out, okay, what account should I open? Where can I go? And you don't physically have to walk into a space to open up an investment account, though you can. But we'll talk about these three options: a brokerage, a financial advisor, or a robo advisor in just a minute. But keep in mind that, as with most money accounts, financial accounts, you're going to have to provide some information up front to get that account established. Social security number, tax identification number, these personally identifying pieces of information to verify you are who you say you are. And then also potentially your income, your employment status, and then hopefully too, your investment goals and your level of risk tolerance, so that when you start investing, everything kind of matches with your goals and your comfort level, so as to not lose sleep at night when thinking about your investments. Jacky, I wanted to ask you, because you have an experience or a perspective as an international student, and we might have some international students tuning in today. Can an international student invest? Can they open up an investment account here in the States?
Yeah, definitely. That's how I invest as well. But some document you would need will be similar, like social security number or ITIN number.
Mhm.
Case can vary if you have some exception. That's why our center is here. Come talk to us and we'll guide you how to do the process and open an account if you want.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, that's good information to have. So speaking of these accounts, who do you communicate with? Who are you, giving your information to get this account set up? And we generally will bucket it in three ways. And now for folks who are maybe new to the world of investing, are just trying to learn the ropes, dip their toes in, get their feet a little wet, um, but are building confidence, a robo advisor might be a good place to start. It's an app that is automated. After you plug in some information about yourself, complete a couple of surveys, the money that you put into that account through your robo advisor will be automatically invested into stocks, bonds, or otherwise, based on that's the survey that you took, what the robot knows about you, right? So in this case, it's really low involvement, and it gives you a space to begin learning more about the investment process, what you're investing in. But it's just hands off enough where it can help to prevent you from feeling overwhelmed. And there's a ton of apps out there, Betterment, Acorns, that are spaces for you to begin setting up an account with a robo advisor. Now, keep in mind, it is a robot managing it all. So there's going to be limited support in terms of like a real person to speak with if you wanted that. And there's a little bit less flexibility because you're not managing it that much, the robot is. But it could be a good entry point for folks who are just trying to get comfortable and get into investing for the first time. We've also got financial advisors that someone could pay to meet with. If this is in budget for you, you might appreciate working with somebody who's a fiduciary who can offer you investment advice and also help manage your investment accounts. But you're going to pay more for that service. There's generally going to be higher fees, but it's more hands-off at that point. You are kind of entrusting this person to manage your investments for your benefit. And as a fiduciary, they have the responsibility to act in your best interest. But of course, when you pay, you get somebody's help, you're going to have to pay for it. So that may or may not be a good option for you. If you are looking for kind of the middle ground of like, I don't want to pay somebody to do all this. I don't want a financial advisor, but I also don't want to have a robo advisor. I want to be a little bit more hands-on. A discount broker might be best for you, where you have a space to be more involved, right? Doing a little bit of DIY with selecting your investments in your account, and paying just a small fee generally what is going to be a small fee to have that account kind of be managed through the brokerage, something like Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade, Fidelity. There's plenty others. Jacky mentioned some others to me earlier that he has accounts with that aren't listed here. But a discount broker might be best for you, right? You have an opportunity to still get connected with a real person if you needed to. But generally with that discount broker, like it's more a la carte DIY, you're doing it yourself. If you are looking for a full service broker, somebody like a financial advisor, but maybe doesn't have that fiduciary responsibility, like you could pursue a full service broker where they are fully managing your investment accounts. You're going to pay for that management. But keep in mind that if they are not fiduciaries, they don't necessarily have to act in your best interest investment wise. And so, where's your comfort lie here? One or more of these is going to be right for you, but that's worth investigating to figure it out. Jacky, you use a discount broker yourself, right? Yeah, but Jacky, you also told us like you like to invest, you like to do the research. This is an interest for you. I am not on that same side of the spectrum, so I don't want to be that hands-on with my investments. And you all have to kind of decide for yourself what's best and open an account through a medium that is going to meet your needs. Now, once you have that account established, we start looking at what to invest in, the mix that we saw on the earlier slide. And this mix is going to be generally comprised of stocks, bonds, real estate, or alternative investments. Now, no matter which you choose, like Jacky has said many times actually today, like you got to do your research. He enjoys it. If you don't enjoy it, there could be some options for you, right, to invest where it's a little less research intensive. But we also suggest that you diversify. You don't put all your eggs in one basket since there is inherent risk with investing. You don't want to lose it all. And that you play the long game if you can, like we saw Nate do, and take advantage of that high return at the end of 40 years. And don't be afraid to start slow, okay? So let's break down these options here really quick. We start with stocks. We've got our risk meters in the top corner to give you a sense of how risky these various investments will be. Stocks are moderately risky. You are purchasing part ownership in a company when you buy a stock or a share of a stock. And so, if that company does well, your stock is doing well, you're going to profit. You're going to profit from the dividends that the company pays to you, the cash payments because the company is doing well, or from price appreciation where you sell that stock after the company has been doing really well, performing well over the last several days, weeks, months, whatever. So because there's that ebb and flow between, is a company doing well or is it doing poorly? Like there is some inherent risk here, but there's also potential for high returns. And this is where we see that 10% average annual compounded return with stocks. So if you're curious about stocks, you want to get into them more, go for it. Know that they carry higher risk and that they can be research intensive. Jacky told me before we got started here today, he likes doing the research. Okay, if you like doing that research, go for it and pursue those individual stocks for your investment portfolio. But if you're not interested in that kind of research, as I am less interested in researching stocks, there are other options for you, including mutual funds, index funds, and ETFs, which are managed baskets of securities. It's like a pre-packaged assortment of stocks for you to invest in. And it's really the difference between, Jacky likes to do all this research himself. He's, if we equate it to sushi or preparing food, Jacky's going out and he's making sushi for himself. He's picking what rice he likes, which fish, the right avocado to put into his sushi. It's going to taste great. Jacky is picking and choosing his individual stocks for his portfolio. But for somebody like myself, who is like, I don't know, I'm not familiar with this enough. I don't know which rice is the best. Is salmon better than, tuna? I don't know, right? Like equate that to investing. What's going to be my best option? I'm not entirely sure, and I don't want to do the research. No worries. Mutual funds, for example, are going to be that platter, that assembled package of stocks that you can invest into that somebody else, an expert, has put together. In this case, think of it like that sushi chef. So it's the difference between, making your own sushi or going to the restaurant and having the sushi chef prepare it for you. So there are options out there. And I don't want anybody to think like, oh, I'm going to have to do all this research. I'm going to have to pick this all myself. And I don't know if this is going to be a good investment. Like, you can pursue these different funds that have pre-assembled packages of stocks and bonds, and go from there. Now, speaking of bonds, they are something to invest in. They may be packaged into a fund that you're investing into, or you could invest in bonds individually. But know this, they're a little less risky than stocks. They're lower on that risk meter, but with that safety comes a lower return. So we generally aren't going to see that 10% annual compounded return from bonds, but they're a nice way to diversify your portfolio. Keep in mind that bonds are like loans that you're making to the government, or a corporation, where they are essentially giving you an IOU and say, we'll pay you this money back that you've loaned us with interest. And so this is how you make money off of a bond. They do require some research, of course, but they generally are a little bit safer because, like, let's think treasury bonds, for example, you've got the backing of the government behind them, right? So again, a nice way to mitigate risk and diversify your portfolio. Now, we've also got real estate, which I think we might be more familiar with, right? This idea that I could buy a property and I could rent it out to a tenant. And so as the investor, I'm making money in that sense. Or I could buy a property that I'm actually living in, but at some point I'm going to sell it, or I buy a house and fix it up and flip it. And that when I sell that house to the buyer, in exchange for the deed, I get that profit, right? If my home price has appreciated. So real estate, it is an investment. Certainly the housing market could take a downward turn and our investments, our houses or our properties are not worth as much. And so we do see some inherent risk there. But risk aside, let's say you are not yet in the space to purchase a house, because it is a really big initial upfront investment with a big down payment. You could still invest in a REIT, which is a professionally managed real estate portfolio. So you're investing in part ownership of a company that has is managing properties like malls, the buildings downtown. Jacky lives, not downtown, but he lives, any of the students here who are living in these big rental communities, somebody is, managing that. There's a company managing it, and you would be investing in that via a REIT. So they're a way to diversify your portfolio. They do have, tend to have high dividend payments, but they're super research intensive, similar to stocks, but super research intensive and harder to value. So that may or may not be a good addition to your personal investment portfolio. Now on the far end of our risk continuum, we also have alternative investments. And these are things like cryptocurrency and NFTs, collectibles, commodities like gold, gas, silver, coffee, things like that. And we call them alternative because they're generally pretty, they're pretty risky, and they don't kind of fit what we typically think of in our head as like an investment, which would be like a stock, bond, or real estate, right? Now, the potential here is that you could have great returns. We have definitely seen folks make it big with cryptocurrency, NFTs, or collectible items, but they're very risky. Startup companies, for example, are an alternative investment, and that startup company could fail after you've invested in it. That cryptocurrency, platform could totally collapse like we saw with FTX, right? Or your Beanie Babies are no longer worth anything, as my parents found out once upon a time, right? So you may not invest at all or a ton in these alternative investments because it might not fit your risk tolerance. And that's something that we'll round out our conversation here talking about is like, okay, we saw stocks, bonds, real estate, alternative investments. We're learning about how they work and kind of where they fall on this risk continuum. You need to decide as you are choosing your mix, how risky can you be? Are you comfortable being? Are you more of a conservative investor? Are you more aggressive? Do you kind of fall somewhere in between? I'd actually be curious to know where you actually fall on that. I'm going to put a quick poll out there for you to think for a second on what kind of investor you are. I'm not aggressive. I am definitely more on the conservative side. I would place myself more in the moderately conservative end of this. Even as a younger person who's in her 30s, sometimes age is a factor, but I still am, I would lose sleep at night. But I don't know, Jacky, where do you kind of fall on this continuum?
So I fall more toward like moderately aggressive as I'm investing with my spare money and it's not a big amount. I'm still gaining that hands-on experience.
Hmm.
So I have the mindset as if I lose everything here, it wouldn't affect my daily life. And I think that's
Hmm.
something I want everyone to have if you're thinking of getting more risky, is to have that mindset to take care of that emotional roller coaster as the investment can bring you.
Hmm. And keep in mind too, you might be, more conservative with your retirement investments, but more aggressive with, like Jacky said, that extra money you have that you're kind of separately and playing around with in the market, right? Jacky, you look to be the only person in this call today who identifies himself as an aggressive investor, and that's okay. We've got this QR code on the screen. It takes you to an investor questionnaire offered through Vanguard. If you want to, do one of those kind of online quizzes that helps to give you a sense of, based on how you respond to certain scenarios and the questions, like where you fall in this continuum, peruse it. You probably have some intuition here on where you fall, but keep in mind that your risk is going to influence, or your risk tolerance is influencing how you mix up this investment portfolio of yours. So those who are more conservative tend to hold their money in bonds and liquid cash and less in stocks. But like Jacky said, on the more aggressive side of things, individuals are investing more in stocks or alternative investments, products that carry a higher risk. And this can change over time. It will probably change as you get older, or as your financial situations change as well. So there are definitely some different factors at play here influencing your overall tolerance. Okay, so that said, we covered a lot: saving, investing, how to invest, retirement, different investment vehicles, and risk. That's a lot. So I want to say thank you to everybody who's tuned in so far. You're hanging in there.